Okay, so we're gonna go over a back squat technique and how to analyze your own technique in videos. So the first thing you wanna do is look at your setup. So as you notice, Craig here, his feet are about shoulder width apart, pointed straight ahead. You can be ever so slightly toed out, but they should generally be pointed straight ahead. If you need a really wide stance or to toe out, you have a mobility problem, you need to address that. The bar is on the shelf. He's pulling his shoulders back to create that nice shelf that the bar is hanging on. When we're prescribing back squats, we want a fairly high bar position, not a power lifter hanging halfway in the shoulder blade position. You might be able to squat a little bit more that way, but you're not training to be a power lifter. You're training for special operations or something similar to that. So he's pinching those elbows together, but he's not arching the hell out of his back. So if you notice, that's a lot of times what powerlifters do when they set up. So he's got a more neutral spinal position. So he's got some curve to his spine, that's fine, but he's not excessively arching, pushing his chest out. His ribs aren't flaring. Instead, he's pretty much in a straight line from his ear, shoulder, hip, knee, and ankle, with a slight bend in the knees at the top position. So the first thing he's gonna do is take a nice breath in through his nose. You should feel expansion everywhere. And then he's gonna brace. From here, he's gonna drop straight down into a squat. Good, and then come back up. So you notice, as he dropped down, he moved equally through his knees and his hips. So his knees were driving out over his toes, but he never lost contact with his heel the entire time. You didn't see the weight shift up to his toes. And when he broke in the motion, his hips moved backward as his knees went forward in equal parts. Again, depending on your levers, this is gonna look a little bit different, but in general, you wanna see both of these things moving. What you can see is somebody who hinges at the hips and gets a ton of hip motion and not much knee motion, or you can see somebody who stays really upright and really pushes forward, and then they drive forward and then they move through the hips. Again, you wanna have this nice equal motion where you're driving through the knees and the hips at the same time. You'll feel balance through your whole foot when you do this. You'll feel like you can drive through your big toe, your pinky toe, and your heel at the same time. As he drops into that squat position, the next thing to look at is what's happening with the spine. Again, you can start in a good position, but you can easily lose that and arch really hard. So he's got a little bit of a curve in his spine, but go ahead and arch for me in the bottom position. But he's not excessively arched like this where all that tension is in his lower back. So again, you wanna be somewhere in the middle. If you notice that your hips are tucking underneath you, then you're going a little bit too low. You don't need to go ass to grass. You need to go at parallel, below parallel, something like that, but not so far that your hips are tucking under. That'll start to put a lot of pressure on your lower back, especially as you add load, and you want to avoid that. So again, if you look at the bar path from the side, it's generally gonna move when you do a good squat. It's gonna move straight up and down. There's no forward and back motion. So those are the things that you wanna look at. His head position, he's generally looking straight ahead. As he drops down, he doesn't have to crank his neck up as hard as possible, but he's also not staring at the floor. He's just generally gazing straight ahead. There's a little bit of wiggle room there. Again, as long as you're not at the extremes of the things that we talked about here, that's what you wanna go for. Not every rep has to be exactly the same, but you generally want a vertical bar path, balance in the foot, equal knee and hip motion, and staying somewhere in the middle position with the spine. If you hit all those things, your squat's gonna be really effective.